As you can see, I have our agenda up for today's meeting. It's a little bit different than what was sent to you and what's posted on our website, just because we have some really great information coming from Michael Barnes from VDOT that we wanted to make sure everyone heard today. So that's added in here, as well as we'll talk about smart scale updates, because that was some exciting news that came out since I made the agenda. All right, so I'm going to stop sharing my screen so we can all see each other better. And let's take a few minutes to do introductions. So if you're a staff member, just your name and your position and the locality that you work for. And if you're a member of the public, just your name, the locality you live in, and if you want to say why you're joining us today. So I'm Jessica Hirsch-Bowling. I am a transportation planner at the TJPDC. Let's start. I'm just going to go down the list. So Amanda, you are first.
Hey there, Amanda Ponce. I'm the bicycle and pedestrian coordinator with the city.
Chris.
Hello, Chris Genzik. I'm the city's Parks and Greenway Trails planner and coordinator.
Thanks. Dan, go ahead.
Dan Butch with Albemarle County Transportation Planning.
Michael Barnes.
Hi, Michael Barnes with VDOT, local project coordinator.
Peter Krebs.
Good morning, I'm Peter Krebs from the Piedmont Environmental Council.
Michael Geisert.
Yes, I'm live in Carsbrook. I'm interested in the area, bicycle and ped.
Thanks. Thanks for joining us. Shane, go ahead.
Good morning, everyone. Shane Sawyer with VDOT Central Office, Transportation and Mobility Planning Division.
Thanks for joining us. Thomas Fitzpatrick.
Good morning, I'm Tom Fitzpatrick. I'm the VDOT Culpeper District LAP Program Manager. I'm also in the process of transitioning with Project Coordinator Michael Barnes and picking up TJPDC. Thank you.
Awesome. Nice to meet you, Thomas. Tim Padalino.
Tim has a chat that he might be in and out.
That's right. Okay, so we'll come back to Tim if Tim can join us. Right, and Bill.
Hey, I'm Bill Palmer, GIS planner with UVA.
Did I miss anybody? Nope.
This is John Belechek, Central Office VDOT here.
Sorry, you were super quiet. If you just want to introduce yourself one more time. Or not, that's okay too. All right, well, let's get rolling. I'm gonna bring up our agenda again. Okay, so the first thing on our agenda is a one map update. So Amanda, I'm gonna let you give us our good news and our bad news.
Yeah, which is our good news? The bad news is that Bob Brown, our city's GIS analyst, is going to be leaving us at the end of the month. So we're going to be needing someone to kind of pick up the pieces, I guess, of the One Map project. Based on what he has told me, we are still waiting on the county to get the data in the One Map format. We also are waiting on the county to get the portal, get their GIS portal so that we can link the two city and county portals so that we can have, you know, the map displayed in a public format. And what else did I have on that list of things that needed to do? But we do have the city's data and UVA's data merged and ready to go. And so we just need to kind of figure out plan moving forward.
Great, thanks, Amanda. And I'll add, when Amanda first told me about this, there was some talk about things moving over to the TJPDC. And I think, unfortunately, we just do not have the technical expertise needed here to kind of finalize this project. We're happy to host it, as we talked about previously, but we just don't have the staff who know enough about GIS to take these final steps that Amanda just talked about. I think it would be helpful to hear a little bit from the county to know where your information is and if we might get that to Bob before the end of the month. Thoughts?
Yeah. Amanda, can you just repeat what was for data wise, what was needed?
Well, what I was told from Bob was that the data that you have is not in the one map format. So I don't know exactly what that means, but that's what I was told. With the agreed upon, the county has not submitted a version with the agreed upon field names. I asked a while back for an updated submission, but haven't heard back. That was from Bob.
I'm just kind of shocked because I even said this last meeting was, there was no update to anything, data wise. So what we submitted in the fall, I thought was what was needed. I will follow up on this.
Okay.
But like, I'll say, I haven't been in those conversations through our GIS team and Bob, so I could be out of the loop. But I just want to confirm that I really thought we're in the process of merging and getting this going. I had no idea that we still needed to update or correct anything. But I'll see what's missing or get the right people discussing that. I'm not sure what it means by what was agreed upon, meaning the new data. I don't know what that means. I thought we, ironed out all of that stuff. So
right.
if something else was decided on since last, summer, then that's news to me. And I thought we submitted what was needed early fall. With minor updates, minor edits needed and stuff like that.
Right.
So
yeah.
I do know about the portal thing is the county's going through an upgrade with their Esri Enterprise. That's past me, but they have been just, keeping us updated with that's in the process. And this spring should, get that rolling. So I have no clue how that factors in what is delaying, but I do know internally data wise, it's all a whole new upgrade and everything like that. So I assumed the geodatabase, one map geodatabase that we submitted was sufficient and to the protocol that we decided on. So I'll follow up on that. I'll make a note and say, from the county's perspective, from a board member, there is concern about that we do have what is specifically for Ragged Mountain being communicated accurately, data-wise. So just to express that point and being able to, I don't think that should be a big deal at all. Data is we could portray it however we want. And being able to, we have notes fields and be able to communicate uses and where they are allowed. And it's, just want to emphasize that with Amanda and Chris, city folks.
Yeah, sounds good. I get that. And
it just keeps
Ivy
getting brought
Creek
up.
too, Ragged Mountain and Ivy Creek, probably both.
Yeah, those are the two spots that would be similar for uses. But I do believe that Ragged Mountain is data that the city would be, that would be city data. And we provided the Ivy Creek data. So if any confusion with that, that I believe was settled our last meeting as well, so.
Yeah, I've got Ragged Mountain and Hayward, but I think it's already in there. We can double check. If we need it, I've got it.
Okay.
Great. So it sounds like Dan or the GIS folks at the county are going to get in touch with Bob, hopefully before he leaves. Amanda, do you know what the next steps are for that position? Is there someone coming in to take Bob's place, or is that going to be, it's going to take a little bit longer to fill, or what's going on there?
Yeah, I don't have any idea. No idea.
Okay. So I think a follow-up question, since the PDC doesn't really have the ability to step in for the technical expertise, is UVA or the county. Do you guys feel like this might be something you could take on?
I'd have to talk to our GIS group if they would have any capacity to. They seem to be pretty busy whenever we have meetings and stuff about data, but I can inquire.
And the Piedmont Environmental Council has got a GIS division. I don't know if it's worth approaching them. I don't know if Peter's on this call or not, but they do have a GIS division. Maybe they could do it.
Peter, go ahead, Peter.
Yeah, so I don't think we actually have the bandwidth, and I also think that there would be concerns about us like holding. It's weird in the virtual world, but holding like municipal data as like the official receptacle of that, I can ask.
Michael, we had also had a conversation yesterday. Did you want to speak now about some suggestions you had?
Yeah. Again, Michael Barnes with VDOT and local coordinator. I guess what I was, the conversation that you and I had yesterday, Amanda, was sort of related back to sort of doing some prioritization and using the map as a prioritization tool, since in theory we could have all of the facilities on a single map. We could probably start looking at the proposed and existing and try and match those up the various funding programs that VDOT helps to build these facilities with. That being said, yeah, the one map stuff, as far as what VDOT can provide as a service is somewhat limited. I'm happy to put some of my time into it. Amanda was kind enough to send me the city's one map data last night, and I pulled it up this morning. I've had a few minutes to look at it. It does look like there's just a couple observations looking at it really quickly. Like, for example, we were just talking about the trails around Hayward. They look like they're really rough, and there's not, I don't think all of them there. So there is like need to add a few things, which I'd be happy to do. As far as, I guess the other thing I'd say is looking at the quality of the data, just the trail types. It looks like there's a lot of varying names, like shared use path is shown on all caps as one, and then shown as shared use path, not in all caps. So there's a lot of data cleanup that looks like needs to happen in the one map stuff, at least coming from the city. I think I could potentially take the county's data and the city's data and sort of merge them together for this group so we can just sort of look at them. I definitely am not in a position to put something together that would be, I think one of your all's original concepts was to have this as something that would be on a website that the general public could look at. But I don't think I can do that. But as far as like trying to show how it might be a planning tool for this group, I'd be happy to do some preliminary stuff to sort of do proof of concept with some of the GIS. I'm not a GIS expert, but I've played around enough to know I think we can use it as a planning tool. And again, when I come back talking about it as a planning tool, I think of it as we've got all of these facilities in the GIS. And because they're there, we can probably start to add new fields that would be criteria for which we might pick a project. And those things could be based on certain factors, whether they are socioeconomic, maybe it's in an area of high concentrations of either low income folks, or it's in an area that is targeted for economic development. And that we could create a weighting tool that if the trail's in that area, it would get, say, 10 points. Whereas if it's not in that area, maybe we get 0 points. We could do stuff like, is it of the planned trails in areas where we already own the right of way, like parks or something else? And it might be a means of trying to winnow out and try to get the, if there's, I don't know how many particular trails are in the data set right now, but if there's, say, 100 or 200 proposed trails, maybe we could pick out the top 20 or so that meet a defined set of criteria that the group might agree upon, and that those could then serve as a priority basis for upcoming grants that VDOT would be working on. But I'd be willing to do that type of general sort of proof of concept and help bring some more value to the one map exercise. But again, as far as creating something that is going to be ready to be put out to on a website, I think that's probably going to be beyond what VDOT's going to be able to provide. I guess that really leaves us with sort of two lines of conversation: what I just brought up and the potential value added of planning versus your all's goals of a public website.
Yeah, so I do think the prioritization is like the second step conversation that we might not quite be at. I just wanted to clarify on the basics of what you're offering. Are you offering that as like an individual or as a VDOT staff member? Is this something like VDOT is offering?
I think that VDOT would be interested in seeing how we could help this become a prioritization tool. Because I think one of the things talking with folks on my side is, I think there's a potential that we could sort of help create better applications in the future. And by better applications, I mean finding projects that are, once the city and the county have prioritized what are the projects they want to work on in the next several years, we might be able to help step in and help develop better concept plans, better estimates that would lead to better applications and hopefully help create projects that are adequately funded and that are ripe, whatever that might mean. I mean, obtaining right of way is always a difficult aspect of these programs. So maybe that's one major factor of what ripeness is, or areas that are a high priority for various other criteria. I mean, I'm talking in generalities right now because I don't want to prejudge what this criteria could be. But I think that's what we could do. I think that's what VDOT would be prepared to do. But it seems like you all have a major barrier to even doing that. And the first thing is trying to integrate the two platforms. Hopefully, I think what Dan was trying to say is the county already has their fields and the data in the table as they think it's needed. And if that's the case, and if Dan can provide it to me, I can try and help do a little bit of QA/QC on some of the information and sort of help us get to a step where one of your all's technical GIS people, maybe the replacement of Bob or somebody else, could then take that data and sort of start working on a front end, forward facing towards the public to present this information. I think that just, again, looking at it quickly, I think there's some data cleanup that needs to be done. And that could be helpful. But again, I'm trying to really create something separate for you guys, which is different from what you're talking about. And I think your needs are.
I think we always knew that data cleanup was kind of a next step. Like once we had it all in one place, we could look at it. We hadn't gotten that far yet. So I appreciate that comment because that is definitely something that needs to happen before it goes live.
Just piggybacking, can y'all hear me okay now?
Yes, we can.
Piggybacking on what Michael said, where using this as a prioritization tool and where the rubber meets the road is the VTrans needs. So I'm not 100% sure on what one map entails. Is it all the plans in addition to all the facilities? Is that correct?
Yes.
As I look at the data, that's what's in there, John. It definitely is existing facilities down to UVA sidewalk system. So it's pretty fine grained at one level.
just to be clear, it's also planned facilities. It's all the bike plans together too.
It
Okay.
is proposed routes, and we narrowed it down to infrastructure by categories of sidewalk, shared use path, trails, bikes, infrastructure. So it's a planning tool.
So like what's been happening with VTrans is every round they're kind of like ratcheting eligibility and getting more and more refined. And what I've been trying to tell MPOs and PDCs and stuff is you guys really need to like get all your planned facilities on a map, and then there's that VTrans layer of the needs and match them up and see what projects are going to be eligible for the VDOT grant projects and what projects might not be. And if you have your own prioritization for bike ped projects, you know, how does that compare to what's eligible? Is there your top project that's not even eligible? And is there a good reason that that's the case? Because a lot of this VTrans stuff is being made on incomplete statewide data sets. So that would be like really good to have a comparison of those two things, because, you know, we just want to make sure that good projects are eligible.
Thanks for that information, John. Staff, anyone who's been here longer than me, can you talk a little bit more about our Jefferson area bike ped plan and how prioritization for that project aligns with what you guys were picturing for, or aligns with like VTrans, or how did you guys come up with the prioritization for that plan? I guess I'm also looking at you, Peter.
So you know, I didn't write the prioritization part of the plan, but my memory is that there were a series of filters and sort of tools such as, you know, socioeconomic factors, but also trips that could be substituted to bike rides rather than cars. So like trips that are less than half a mile or whatever it was. So then there was a prioritization rubric based on that. And then city and county and university staff, this group, looked through those and had a sort of ripeness / alignment with what's already going on, because there is no tool that could, you know, just automatically pop up like, hey, this is like part B of an ABC plan that the city's had in mind forever. So I don't know. So for example, you know, the Monticello connector is one that had those like source destination stuff, but also factored in that the city was building bike lanes on Monticello Avenue and also had plans to push on the other side of that project. So it made sense. There's no like algorithm that would, you know, highlight that, or an awareness that a piece of land is about to become available. So it was a combination of like, I think like both art and science, you might say.
Thank you for that, Peter. And I'm going to kind of catch myself now because I think we've started to have a prioritization conversation, which I think is valuable to have. So I've made a note to add it to our February agenda with a little bit of time left to talk about this one map update agenda item. I want us to come back to this technical expertise question. So it sounds like city, we don't know when someone is going to step into Bob's role. There might not be someone in the near future to take on this GIS expert role for this project. Maybe there's someone at the county, maybe there's someone at UVA, maybe there's someone at PEC, but there's questions about the political nature of a nonprofit holding on to locality data. One other idea I want to throw out there, as you guys might know, I used to work at a university, so I'm a big fan of reaching out to like professors and seeing if they want to work out an MOU to hold on to that data and do the work for us as part of their classwork. Is that something that's of interest for either the PDC to pursue or the city? Any thoughts from anyone about any of those options that we've just talked about? What might be a good place to find the technical expertise that we need?
That's a good, I think it's good discussion. I'll basically bring this to our GIS team, GIS manager, to be fair, but I do agree that workload and responsibility will have to, I think this will have to be a discussion internally we'll need to have and follow up.
And I would kind of back something that Daniel said earlier is I think once this data is in and loaded, I don't see it changing, at all rapidly. So it's almost an annual quality control check that things are still what they are, because I remember like with the TJPDC plan and the city plan, those plans haven't drastically added a whole bunch of new routes because the city and county don't have a whole bunch of new roads and areas that weren't here 10, 15 years ago. So my guess would be when whatever agency picks it up, and like Michael Barnes offered to do, getting it to a point of calling it good is probably a huge first step. And then we might not mess with it again for a little while because these things don't evolve that rapidly over time.
Yeah, I think that's true. And then having a place to host it and provide it as an open data source, then I think that might be after that point where, getting like a professor or a class involved in it to kind of more consume the data rather than be responsible for updating it and maintaining it, because they can bring that kind of, fresh eyes and technical expertise that we don't necessarily have to create interesting web apps and uses for it, analysis.
Does Chris just still work at the UVA Scholars Lab or the Spatial?
Yeah, he's there.
He seems like he would be right up. This would be right up his alley.
Yeah, he'd probably be really into that. It's a question of hosting as well. Whether the library might. Yeah, I mean that's a good point. I didn't even think about Scholars Lab as another potential, place to host the data. But they're not a municipality, so it's, I don't know.
So just for everyone to keep in mind, the PDC is still interested and able to host the finished product on our website once it's done. We just, like I said, do not have the GIS expertise to do these last few steps. So I think at this point, unless anyone has any final comments, what I'm going to do is encourage you all to talk to your GIS experts at your location and, see what kind of time people have available in the next few months. We'll revisit this conversation in February, and we'll try to take the next steps from there. Amanda, does that sound okay with you? I know Bob is leaving before our February meeting, but I think that's the best we can do at this point.
Yeah, I think so. And, to be honest, I feel like it would be better, not to put you on the spot here, but if you're able to kind of take over just the different pieces of this, because I feel like that was kind of thrown in my lap just because Bob was the one that said, I'll write the app, but it's not necessarily something that I've been doing a good job of keeping on top of. And with him going, I don't know that the city necessarily has to be the person that, or the group that kind of continues to, wrangle all the different pieces that need to get it over the finish line.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point, Amanda. And so I'm just going to give you a little bit of homework. If you can send stuff my way, send files my way in whatever way these files are shared, I can hold on to that, and then you don't need to feel like you're stuck holding on to everything as Bob leaves. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, thanks.
All right. Any other
Jessica, before we move on, somewhat related, VDOT is developing a statewide bicycle facility inventory. And is there any way we could get the the one map data, because at the end of the day, we want our map to jive with any locality map. And just looking at what we have and being a local resident, I know that we do not have all the facilities in the Charlottesville, Albemarle area. And we've also asked, for help QC in this, but I don't think we are exactly, I know we don't have everything that is on the ground. I was just wondering, is there any way to get the data so we could compare our data and update our map, just so there's no discrepancy between when this thing ultimately goes live, what you guys have and what we have. And again, we're just looking for existing facilities. We're not necessarily looking for all the planned facilities.
Yeah, so Shane, I think I can, once I get the info from Amanda, which is going to be the city and UVA data and maybe county data, Dan, you might have to follow up with me as well and give me your data. I will send that along to you. And like you're hearing, it sounds like it might not be perfectly cleaned up, but it should be a good starting point for you. And then you can follow up with me if there's anything else you'll need after that. Does that sound good?
We would basically just digitize from whatever you guys, we'd redigitize whatever you guys have. Again, we're not necessarily looking to merge anything. We're just looking to QC what we have and add any missing facilities that I would assume you guys would be a little more detailed, or I would think that the local data would probably be a little more accurate, given that we're doing it statewide and you guys are just focusing on local. So it'd just be great to, again, make sure that these are the same.
Great. Yeah, so you can look for something from me soon. All right. Moving on from this item, let's talk about TAP grants that are coming up. Michael, we're a little over time on our agenda, so why don't you go ahead?
Yeah, it's fine. I think I can be quick about this. I just want to bring to everyone's attention that VDOT will be doing another round of TAP grants this year, with the pre-apps opening on May 17th and the deadline for your pre-applications being July 1st, with the deadline for the application itself being October 1st. So it's not too early to start planning for potential projects that you all are interested in. I know in sort of a little preparation for this meeting, I talked with the county folks. It sounds like there is a list of prioritized projects that they have out there. I didn't get a chance to talk with you, Chris, but briefly talked with Amanda yesterday. It sounds like the city may need to do a little prioritization before you all are ready to pick a project that you, or maybe two that you want to have put into the hopper to consider for this year's application. I know that both Tom and I are interested in helping make sure that these applications are as good as possible. So perhaps we should be either through this group or through the localities individually trying to target a couple projects for submission this year. Again, for those who aren't familiar, the TAP program is a federally funded program that puts roughly $350,000 to $400,000 a year into a project. But since it's a 2-year funding cycle, you can pretty much double those fundings. That's not a given, but it's a good planning figures to aim for when picking a project and thinking about the application. I don't know if you guys have any questions.
Michael, you and I will have a conversation because we've obviously got some triangulation going on, but we may find that we would apply to supplement one of these ones that needs a little bit to get over the hump. Is that an option, or do they all have to be new projects? I mean, let's have a conversation later. Obviously, we've got some details to work out. Let's say Meadow Creek Bridge, for example, if we decided that needed to get a shot in the arm, that could be one of our tactics, is to give that a shot in the arm and perhaps then pursue another project as well that's new. I don't know.
Exactly. I mean, that is always something that we need to be considering. Part of what it was is I wasn't, when I thought I'd put this on the agenda, I wasn't as familiar with what the county has planned, and Kevin provided me a documentation that the county has a significant amount of planning already gone for the projects they want to do. he suggested I talk with Dan Butch a little bit, and which I will follow up with you, Dan, after this meeting or over the next couple of days to talk a little bit more.
Sounds good. Kevin, yeah, Kevin told me about your conversation. So.
Thank you, man. Thank you, Jessica.
Yep. All right. Yeah, if people have any additional questions, feel free to follow up with Michael. All right, moving on to PDC and MPO updates. Administrative changes. So I'm assuming you've all heard that Chip has taken a position as the city manager for City of Charlottesville. We're very excited for Chip and we're very sad to lose him. He will be continuing in his current role at the PDC until February 12th. So we still have him for a little bit. And after that, Christine Jacobs, who's our current COO, will be stepping up as interim director. I don't think that we're like in a super big rush as the PDC to find a replacement for Chip. So we'll be taking that slowly. Does anyone have any questions? I don't know that I have too much more information, but if you have any questions, I'm happy to try to answer them. No? Okay. All right, smart scale updates. I'm going to stop sharing this right here. And I'm going to now show the list of projects. Unfortunately, Chuck wasn't able to join us to talk in more detail about these, but just a congratulations to everybody, city and county. There's a lot of smart scale funding that we will get to be working with. Does anyone want to discuss anything about smart scale? I will point out that the 5th Street Hub and Trails project is a go. We'll be moving forward with that. Any other discussion?
Question. Sorry, I'll let the staff go. Then I have a question. Maybe my question will be answered.
Quick update on 5th Street, and this is not yet completely a done deal, but the entire land swap of that piece of property that was going to be the bike hub, that may finally be going forward. It's been separated from the notion of a land swap. And at that point, I spoke with the property owners the other day. They were like, if it's not tied to this other project, you know, strong chance they're just going to sign it over to us, because at that point it's value to them in a poker game is different. So we may finally acquire that big square block of land that may or may not feed into the current version of the 5th Street Hub project. But that would be a good thing if that does come online one way or the other, because that would be a nice thing to have out there as your parking lot, bike rental area, blah, blah, blah.
Hey, Chris, so that's the whole parcel, not just the stream corridor right of way?
The stream corridor right of way easement's getting signed. The easement over that parcel sewer line is getting signed. Oh, everything's going crazy right now. But the owner tells me more than likely the entire parcel would then also come to the city, whether via donation or a small fee purchase. And we'll hopefully stitch that up in the next couple months. Got to go for a second. Parks is first.
If it's all right, I just have one thought. I don't know if staff is prepared to do this, but it might be helpful to go down this list real quick and just kind of point out like the pedestrian and bike components of any of these. Because I know, you know, not all of them have like a big pedestrian bike component, but a lot of them do. So I mean, it'd be helpful for me to know that.
No, that's a great point, Bill. And I forgot for a second that we have some interested members of the public here too. So I think that would help them. I am not super familiar with all of the MPO and PDC projects. Like I don't know the bike ped details on hydraulic, but I can come back with that information at a later date. Dan, do you want to go ahead and talk about the Albemarle County projects?
Sure. Bill, that was a good point to point out. Yeah. Basically, we do have, I know, like, even if we have intersection improvements, we have requested some form of bike ped infrastructure improvements on that. Specifically for hydraulic in 29, we have the roundabouts, and I know that we should be having the sidewalks and bike lanes added in those. For 250 though, I do know that it's median and improvement that way. And I know there's no bike lanes on 250 there. We did not find that would fit, but I would need to double check about any sidewalks being implemented in that project. I'd have to look in the application. I don't remember offhand right now. But for Old Lynchburg and 5th Street, there'd definitely be a shared use path connection on that with a pedestrian crossing. Same thing with Royal Road and John Warner Parkway roundabout. But Old Lynchburg 5th Street's a roundabout as well. For 2053, right by Monticello there, same improvements as well. And I don't remember offhand if it was on what side a shared use path connection was for 20 and 53, what side of Route 20. For our park and ride lot, I know that we requested to have, I don't know if it went through with charging station separate from the bike and ped, but I think we do have bicycle infrastructure for parking, bike racks. And for the shared use path on 29 is obviously a nice connection for the Northtown Trail there, 5th Street. And let's see here. There will be a shared use path for the Fontaine Avenue displaced left turn. That will be, there'll be a shared use path connection as well on that one. Am I missing? I think this slide covers all the projects.
Thanks, Dan. Amanda, did you want to talk about the Charlottesville City projects?
Sure. So we've got Ridge Street safety improvements. That is the area between Cherry Avenue and I believe Monticello Avenue might be the endpoint there. And it's got some bike and pedestrian improvements along that stretch primarily. And I think also removing some parking to create some additional flow through the intersection. I believe that is what that all included. West Main Streetscape Phase 3 is just the continuation of the West Main project between 8th Street and Roosevelt Brown. So that includes streetscape improvements, bicycle pedestrian improvements, street trees, things of that nature, ADA compliance. Preston and Grady is still, I think we've got some public outreach that needs to be done in order to really determine what that project entails. But as presented in the application, it included some reconfiguration of that intersection to allow traffic to flow, to create more of a T situation. So traffic would be able to flow from Preston Avenue up to Barracks Road a little bit more in a straight path rather than this kind of funky configuration that we have with 2 intersections or 3 intersections. I don't know how many intersections are there currently, but again, we heard a lot from the public about the scope of that project. So we will be doing some sort of outreach before that funding is available to really finalize what that scope looks like. And I was trying to find more information. Why do I feel like I'd heard that Emmett Street was on the list, Phase 2, but I'm not seeing it here.
It's there. It's down at the bottom of the page.
Further down, yeah.
Okay. So that is a continuation of the shared use path and protected bike lanes on Emmett Street between Arlington and Barracks. And so that connects the project that's currently funded between Ivy and Arlington, and then the project at the the Barracks Road and Route 29 intersection that will create a shared use path along the frontage of 29 up to Barracks Road or along Barracks Road to Buckingham. So we'll have a bit more of a continuous bike connection along 29.
Cool.
That's great.
Whoa, 20 million for that? Sorry, that was not the that was not the amount that we put in for that project. So that's okay.
The projects have like, the first year you get money is 6 years from now, and then it's a 6-year cycle. So each of those years for like the next 12 years has some level of inflation and all types of cost overrun stuff in it. So it looks more expensive than
Yeah,
it would be if it started tomorrow.
right.
I think there was also a fair amount of discussion about some of the costs that project would have at the district level. And I think that was the reason that project went up in cost.
Real quick, because I had to step away, are these approved? Is this like a go list that we're looking at?
It's not a go list yet. It still has to go to the CTB, and it's still got a little bit. This is the staff recommendations and what the analysis came back after they did the scoring.
Cool. Good stuff.
One other thing they're discussing too is there was in this COVID relief bill that was passed in December, there was some money for state DOTs in there, and VDOT hasn't gotten the word from Federal Highway on how much that's going to be and what's eligible for it. But, depending on revenue projections as, before the final CTB vote, it's possible that there could be more money. And as Michael said, the CTB members can move stuff around if they want to.
Is the final vote, is that what's in June?
I believe so. I'm not 100%, but that sounds right.
Any other discussion around smart scale stuff? Cool. All right.
Hey, Jessica, sorry, it took me a second to unmute. So my question was partially answered. So what does the CTB do next? Do they look at the list and either accept the full list or add, subtract the list? Is that what their next step is? This is not like semi-finalists. In other words, this is a pot of projects that could be added or removed. Is that correct?
I see John's unmuted himself. I think he's probably the best answer.
That's pretty much right. I mean, I've seen mostly projects get added, but if there was like a really high priority project that everybody wanted, and then for some reason something they didn't want got funded, I've seen something like that switched, but there's usually no major changes.
Just for everyone's information, moving forward, the February and April, the CTB board is going to develop potential revisions to the staff recommendations. And then in April and May, public hearings on the staff recommended scenario will happen. There will be a May CTB meeting where we'll look at the revised funding scenario, and it will be in June that the ultimate smart scale projects will be adopted in the 6-year plan.
Thanks for that clarification, Michael. I just noticed in the chat, Chris asked a question about Old Ivy Bridge. Does someone want to take that?
Yeah, there was a question about an update on the Old Ivy Bridge. There was, long story short, this was a bridge replacement, and because of the funding, state good repair funding that VDOT was using for this, they could not necessarily just enhance bicycle pedestrian infrastructure since there's no infrastructure on either side of the bridge. But in discussion, the county endorsed VDOT's recommendation by reviewing public comment and providing a accommodation of a 4-foot shoulder on one side. This was supported by resolution of the county board.
Okay.
So, if there's any more questions with that.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like one of those. It's better than it is now. That's awesome. It's kind of a once in 70-year chance to get a bridge as good as we can. If it's already passed through the county board, I'm not sure it's worth pursuing much more. But and I know it's got state of good repair on it. So I guess, the long shot would be we put in a tap or a smart scale to add to the state of good repair to make a really, really good bike ped crossing on it. But my guess is this bridge project, they're not going to stall and wait for more and more and more. So the 4-foot shoulders, again, much better than it is now. So I applaud them for taking that shot and getting some bike ped accommodation on it. So that's awesome.
Right. There's a question.
I mentioned a few years ago, a good exercise would be to go through all the state of good repair projects and see anything with a general condition rating of, is it 5 or less? And that might give you a good idea of what's scheduled to come up on SGR too. Or if y'all just wanted to have a meeting, maybe Michael could arrange a meeting with the district bridge engineer, but because of the limitations of SGR, it's really good to have a plan for if something's going to get replaced, adding a facility if it's a critical spot.
Yeah, that might be a good conversation almost at the state level because, a bridge replacement, when you look at a 3-notch trail project, that 250/29 Ivy Road knot is the hardest piece for the 3-notch trail. It's so technically challenging to replace a bridge there. And I realize that's the current way the game's played, but John, it might be worth looking at going forward if there's an SGR that also happens to be on a major statewide trail or a bike ped, blah, blah, blah. Can the SGR program be reviewed where, again, hypothetical locality could put tap money into adding to an SGR so the SGR is not like when the trucks hit the Park Street Bridge and the Locust Street Bridge, they couldn't make them any wider because it was an insurance claim, so I know there's rules to that, but
yeah, well,
a statewide conversation that says
you are allowed to add tap, and we've been
okay.
working on, we're trying to get a document out, and who knows how long it's going to take, but that kind of explains it and provides some good examples on all that. But SGR is a CTB policy, and it's also in the state code.
Right.
So,
okay.
I'm just an implementer trying to provide coordination.
That could be a higher level, like the State Trails Advisory Committee could just put that notion forward, like, hey, look into this as a statewide thing.
Yeah, any change would have to come at a high level, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
John, I'm glad you mentioned that. I do think it would be good to gain some traction on that with the VDOT crew in this meeting. We've had, that would be a very useful analysis. Peter made a comment just about how the one map and comparing that data with, you mentioned VTrans earlier, and then comparing it to state one map data with the state of good repair and data. And I also think Shane mentioned this too about regular paving programs, being able to see where what roads are going to be getting paved. I know from the county's perspective, we've had these conversations, but we're not really gaining much traction. And I think that would be helpful to start seeing how we can. We did this on Whitewood, I believe. Got the bike lane implemented there. Is it Whitewood? Yes. And that was a regular paving, and we had that as a bike route called out, and we were able to get bike lanes in there. And so I do think that that's a conversation we need to kind of continue to have, and that would be helpful. Side note is we had some concerns about why a bike lane was being dissolved on Whitewood going to the hydraulic intersection. And I will say the residency, we had a conversation with them. They are evaluating that. We don't have an update, but.
I mean, I would encourage you, if you have a list of roads that could be restriped, to send the list to the district. Send it to the district traffic engineer and say, also, all VDOT's pavement data is on Virginia roads too. So we're getting into all types of GIS efforts here, but you can look at them and say, we've got these 10 candidates we want. And, you can yourself rank them by pavement quality and just say, when this comes up, we'd really like to see, whatever improvement it is. But yeah, I mean, it's good to have that legwork done ahead of time.
Okay, thanks. I think I'll have to look back on Virginia roads. What I was looking at was last year, it didn't have an update of what's going to be paved this year.
Yeah, part of the problem is like you could, if something was paved this year, it'll say like it's really bad condition, but it could have already just gotten paved and it's not updated yet. So, yeah,
It would be easier to do
I
that.
mean, again, though, like if you start that conversation with the district, the district maintenance engineer and the district traffic engineer have all that data and, you know, should be able to review your list and see. You know, Fairfax County does this every single year with the VDOT Northern Virginia district, and it works great.
So just so I understand, John, what you're suggesting is that we look at the list from that is to be repaved, and we would make recommendations or prioritizations.
No, I would recommend you identify any roadway in the whole area that could be improved via some type of resurfacing project, and then provide that list to VDOT.
Okay, thank you. All right, any other comments, questions, discussion around smart scale? Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing this list. All right, the next thing on our agenda, was going to be the bike and ped count next step. So we've already looked at the results of that data. It is on our website for people to look at, use as they see fit. I want us to start thinking about the spring count already. So the plan is to go back to those same 10 locations that we counted in the fall. I think we did a really good job working together to come up with the right locations. So let's stick with them, and then we'll have that data over time already getting started. Let's see. I wanted to call out, especially since we have Shane on the call, before we started the fall count, Shane reached out and talked about wanting to ensure that the automatic counters that VDOT has would get put out at some of the same locations where we're doing volunteer counts, and then there would be the opportunity to compare that data. I just didn't get things together quickly enough for Shane to be able to put out those automatic counters at these locations. So I wanted to bring up that discussion again, just for a few minutes. Shane, if you wanted to expand on what I just said, and maybe we can start thinking about where we would want those automatic counters put out for the spring count.
Yeah, and John, feel free to join in. That is certainly potential with enough advance notice. However, there has to be certain conditions. There has to be something to attach the counters to, and different things. But again, I think the earlier I guess if we are going to use those same locations, we could start doing some field work to see if indeed there is a structure to attach it, and work from there.
Thanks. So,
and Shane, real quick, give me a heads up so I can tell my mowing guys to go cut the cable a few times like they've done for Amanda.
Yeah, that'll be appreciated.
I think I owe her a cable at this point. This is like third strike.
So really quickly, locality staff, do you guys have any of those 10 locations? If you need me to, I can bring up the list of the locations, but do you have any locations in mind as being a high priority to put those automatic counters out at? We will still have the volunteer counters out there at the exact same time. You will get the exact same data, but you'll just have the automatic counter data as well. Well, you guys can think about it and always email me if you think of something that seems like
I mean, is there anything at the hydraulic area in general with the 250 trail and all that, again, we've talked about getting some pre-counts to then see what happens after they do, some major stuff. So if there's a bridge going over 29 and that whole hydraulic area, is there we built it, did they come reason to put something out there right now?
Yeah, the nearest location I can think of was our count location at Emmett and Angus, so a little bit south of Hydraulic. Do you think that that would be sufficient, or do we think we need something a little further north on 29?
I'm not as up to speed on what exactly is going on when with Hydraulic and the Zan Road thing. That was just to put out there maybe to the larger group to get a pre-count. If we're not doing major construction out there soon, then maybe that data is not worth getting this round.
Is
Shane
there
might know. He goes
collection?
through there.
Is there collection data on Hillsdale? Because this would be part of the Hillsdale suite, really. But the thing is that it sort of highlights the problem with doing a data-driven approach is the, shall we say, gravitational urge to travel up and down Hillsdale is not the same as the gravitational urge to get from Hillsdale to Stonefield. And so it's very limited, and it's almost like a, how many people are swimming when there's no bridge, so. But Hillsdale, I think, is the closest analog, and also understanding people who are crossing unsafely in the present moment, as you described, Jessica.
We have bike counters on Hillsdale currently, kind of over near the Marshalls, where Marshalls is, and it is now it's only a bike counter, but the numbers are very, very low. So to your point, Peter.
Great. Okay, so unless there's additional comments, I would think that my next steps are, so I'm going to wait for emails to come from you guys if you suddenly think of something if you suddenly think of a location where you want to ensure that there's an automatic counter placed at. Otherwise, I'm going to follow up with Shane and we'll start working out which locations are a high priority to VDOT, and we can get all that stuff set up, do whatever necessary field work we need to do to ensure that we can set those up there.
Real quick thought is Fontaine and headed out to Ragged. Have we already counted that area? Is it already on the list? Fontaine's getting some work done soon. Amanda might know more, but between Dirty Nellies and 250 bypass area, is that an area we've ever counted? Should we count? There's some improvements on the horizon there.
I don't think it was on our list of 10, but no, it wasn't.
Okay, could be for next round. That's fine.
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure we have counts from when when we started the design process for the project. I don't have that data, but I'm sure Kyle Kling does.
And I'm guessing with, the number of bikes that aren't at Ragged Mountain, but they are, and with the Hayward property being what it is, I'm seeing a lot more bikes riding down Fontaine, headed out of the urban area. So right there at the 250 interchange, may or may not be a place, again, maybe not for this round, but maybe next year, to see what the current use is there, because it's certainly gone up in the last couple of years.
And on that note, just FYI, Reservoir Road will be getting paved this spring.
Cool. We've almost got our trail done to the top as an alternate route, so while the paving's underway.
Great. Any other comments? All right, so I'll take those next steps, and we'll only talk about the bike ped count again at this meeting as we get closer. I'm just seeing a chat come in, so I'm going to peek at that. All right. These other two items under our updates is really just to let you guys know about some other projects that the PDC and MPO are working on. I don't have any slides to show you. I'm just going to talk about them really briefly. So there is going to be a transportation corridor study of the northern end of Route 29. So a little bit in Albemarle County and a little bit in Greene County. This is using both MPO and rural money. So we've already had an initial meeting with Albemarle and Greene counties to think about the project boundaries for that project and a little bit more about what exactly we're trying to get out of the corridor study. But I wanted to make you guys all aware of it and just keep it in mind, because I think that biking and walking and transit stuff is going to be, it's going to come up as part of this transportation corridor study. And I just want it to be on your radar so that, you know, as we're working on it, you can offer your input about biking and walking in this corridor. So that's just more for your information. Also, I actually do have slides for this one, so hold on. Okay, so the PDC also received 2 transit grants from their planning grants from DRPT. One of them is the Regional Transit Vision Plan. So those of you who are at MPO Tech, you've already heard this, I'll be brief. The whole point of this study is to come up with a clear vision for the future of transit in our region. We have quite a bit of money to create this vision with. It's $350,000 in total, half of it coming from DRPT. A quarter of it coming from Albemarle County and a quarter of it coming from the city of Charlottesville. This is going to be an 18-month process. The reason I bring it to you guys is because pedestrian access to transit stops, the way that bike lanes interact with transit stops, all of that should be part of this vision plan. So I want to put it on your radar and ensure that you guys feel that biking and walking is represented appropriately in the transit vision plan as we move forward. And then the other grant we got for transit is this Albemarle County Transit Expansion and Feasibility Study and Implementation Plan. So this is a feasibility study and implementation plan for expanded transit service to 3 particular places in Albemarle County, the Pantops area, Monticello, and along Route 29 North. It's a really non-specific area, but up there on 29. The point is to look at not just fixed route options, but also some innovative transit options that might include on-demand service. This is going to be about 12 months. And again, I bring it to your attention because biking and walking should be considered as part of this feasibility study and implementation plan. So just bringing these to your attention so that you're aware of it and you can be involved in the process as we move forward.
Jessica, is there like a plan for releasing information about this, like public press releases on your website, all that stuff?
Yeah, so I think the easiest way for you to get updates initially is going to be coming to our regional transit partnership meetings. The regional transit partnership will serve as the official advisory group for the vision plan project. That plan, as we're writing the scope of work right now, is also to have an interactive website that people will be able to continuously offer, public feedback on the project. So there's going to be a huge public engagement component of that project. So I'm sure that you will hear about it, not just as staff, but again, as members of the public. The Albemarle County project is going to be a little bit different. We haven't decided exactly how that advisory group is going to be formed or how they're going to be meeting. But similarly, that's going to include some public engagement, hopefully a website, but we have to see how the money all shakes out as we go through the RFP process. So short answer is yes, we'll keep you updated. It'll be on our website. Any other questions? Okay. All right, going back to our agenda. Here we are. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the work plan for the upcoming fiscal year. So Sandy and Lucinda and I have been working together on what our plans are for the MPO work plan for next year. For members of the public, that starts in July. Sandy has done the hard work of budgeting out all of the MPO money that we expect to have and has put all the things that we absolutely must do as an MPO already into the work plan and accounted for how much money that's going to take. But even after we do all those things that we have to do, we still had money left over. One of the things that we are strongly considering doing as an MPO, especially in light of Chip leaving and us looking for new leadership as a PDC and MPO, we are thinking of doing a strategic plan for our organization. And the purpose of that would be to really get a better sense of who are we serving and what is our main goal as an organization. So that's something that we're considering spending some of that extra money on. But even with that, there is even a little bit more money left over to do other projects. So that's why I'm coming to you guys to hear what would be useful in the bike ped world that the MPO could do for, or could help facilitate for the localities. So I'm going to stop talking and let you guys discuss.
Is this for just 1 year, or do you guys do a longer term? Because I mean, you're doing 5th Street, you're doing Ravenna Bridge.
This is just for the 1 year. I want to clarify for the Ravenna Bridge, we're not currently doing anything. So we've wrapped up our role, and it is now back in the county and city's hands.
Okay.
If there's something that you want the MPO to do regarding,
that could be one I would, if there's a phase 2 of the bridge. I don't know, we would have to talk about that, but that would be one project I would put to the city and county to discuss. Is there something the PDC could do in their work plan this year or not? That would be one.
Great.
Yeah, I agree with Chris. That definitely, that, and I thought we were going to reevaluate, do a steering committee for the Route 20 connection as well.
I would agree with that. Is there a way to regroup, and whether that depends on Chuck's SPR money or not, I don't know. That maybe it does, maybe it doesn't for either one of those. But yeah, I think Route 20 would be another one to regroup on and see if there's anything that would stick to the wall on that one.
Can you clarify for me what SPR stands for?
How Chuck hired those consultants to actually do the work, and the PDC wasn't, they were the broker in a sense. That would affect your work program if it's not a Chuck consultant doing it. It's way more hours that the PDC would have to do versus kind of being the middleman for a consultant.
Okay, great. Any other broad I see Michael has his hand up. Go ahead, Michael.
I think we should look at an area like a parallel bike ped network that's not on the main roads. Some like parallel grid network that we started putting in, like Hillsdale. But I think there should be a bike ped parallel network that's not connected with the major roads. That should be looked in region wide. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Thank you. Any other thoughts?
I don't know if this is something that everybody would be interested in, but I'm just going to throw it out there as an idea. Some sort of a household travel survey that kind of tries to get at, what are the travel patterns? How are people getting to and from their different places? Where are the opportunities to shift modes and things like that? And, that might be some sort of phone surveys that people do, which, I don't know how successful those are, but also maybe as a parallel to that, some analysis of the streetlight data that we have, and, understanding where people are biking and walking and where people are driving with that streetlight data.
Yeah, Jacob really tipped his toe in there with the bike ped plan. There's a lot more opportunity there.
Something else that comes to mind is just a prioritization of projects we're gonna look into. I mean, there was a lot of discussion and just concern on how from the bike ped plan, how the Route 20 and the Ravenna River crossing, how those projects were pushed to the top. Just being involved, I know that it was for looking for city, county, and collaboration on these projects that were called out on the approved bike ped plan. So maybe polish up, make that more public involvement, and yeah, basically that whole process. And I think we're just talking about the last round of smart scale, but I think with the PDC's new steps that they're taking with the whole smart scale process, that's going to be right around the corner. And so we need to start thinking ahead and being able to see how we prioritize and keep that public process open.
I'd like to second what Dan just said. So the Jefferson area plan revealed, there's all kinds of barriers to getting bike ped, like generating will, having money, acquiring land, all that stuff are common problems that are faced everywhere. In our locality, we also have the related issues of process, where we have a city council and a board of supervisors that are both democratic processes that sit side by side, not necessarily overlapping as much as we'd like. So some kind of work in that. And then it also manifests itself with the data as well, which is why the one map is important. So, as you're thinking about this and you're thinking about a strategic plan, some kind of data housing capacity, I think would be good. It would be great if it could live at Scholars Lab, but at best that'll work in practice. It won't work in theory. But yeah, thinking about that long-term problem as well.
So these are great ideas, and I want to thank you guys so much for coming up with them. So it looks like I have, well, actually, I want to follow up a little bit more on the Rivanna Bridge. Does anyone have any specific next steps that they would like the PDC to take, the MPO?
Yeah, I guess being able to, I could go look at my email, but I think just see how we're going to work from the public comment that we got from the November public forum, and just what from the county we need to know what are we going to do with that, like take it that to the board. What are our next steps after this public forum? So obviously it wasn't a smart scale application this last year, so we need to kind of see how we're going to proceed. So I guess it would be kind of evaluating the public comments, bring that information to the board, let them know how the public feels about that study, and see how to proceed. That's I think the feedback that the county's been getting, that the county has received.
That's what I would second that. Somehow taking the project to the planning commission and council or something to say, we did this exercise, we have this data, we have this information in public comment. Where does it fit on your priority list? Does the planning commission or council say, yeah, go for the next big smart scale, or wait a couple years because COVID hit? Like, we're not doing that right now. I think to keep the momentum going, that bridge project went over so well at that joint meeting of the boards a couple years ago. They were all lit up when we talked about this bridge. How do we bring back to them so they can advise staff what are our next steps between the city, the county, and the PDC to move it forward, or put it in the freezer, or whatever it might be. So creating a presentation and taking it to each board. Dan, I don't know if you would say your planning commission and your board, or at least the one presentation that you can hand off, give to the planning commissions, and then we take it to our board and council. I don't know. But presenting the data and asking the question to the higher ups, what's our next step? What do you want us to do with this information?
Awesome. So I just want to, I'm looking at you, Dan and Chris, because you guys were my points of contact for this project. Is there do you really need the PDC to help you take it to the board and the planning commission or city council? Or is that something, like, we put together the summary document for you, we have all of the list of public comments, like what more can I do to help you take it to that next step?
I would book enough time that you can get paid to come to those meetings. To your point, I imagine we can bring it, or I could bring it. Amanda is still here on the phone. we could probably find a way to bring it to our planning commission. We'd probably want a PDC rep in the room because you guys kind of led the project in that sense. So to your point, Jessica, maybe you don't have to develop much more material, but at least you probably want to book enough hours to attend the meeting so it doesn't show up as an extra on your, I know you guys have to book your hours by the quarter hour for who's funding it kind of thing. I used to do that too. So yeah, at a minimum that, and then maybe Amanda and Dan, do you think there's more the PDC needs to prepare materials, et cetera?
Right. Yeah, I think this is something that we could take to our board, or city takes to their council if they want. But basically, I want to confirm that, we, from the public comments, that we answered every question, provided responses. And this might be in an email that I'll have to go back and double check. Just be able to make sure we have all the gathered information that we need in order for us to go back to the board and ask how do they want us to proceed with this.
Okay, great. So I do think that you have all the information at this point. I will also let you know that we are, I will be giving a small update to the policy board at their January meeting. So the MPO policy board. So at least some elected officials are going to hear about it again there. So I think you're well placed. I think that if you want to consider moving forward with this as a potential smart scale project, I don't think that we can wait until next fiscal year to take it to the boards and the commissions. I think that there's probably enough Sandy would be mad, but I feel like there's enough time that I could make an appearance at board and commission meetings and council meetings just to get it out there, because even with Chip leaving, we're still sticking with this new smart scale policy. So if this is something that you want to apply for the next round of smart scale, we're going to have to start, having that request from city and county in the next month or two.
Okay, so that does, yeah. So we do need to kind of get this going to our board at least, and maybe Chris, you and Amanda, we could work out on getting this together and making sure we're presenting the same information.
Yeah, and I can always just give you guys the slides that I used for the webinar as well. So why don't, again, I'm gonna give you guys homework, reach out to me, set up a meeting, and we can make a plan to move forward and get this out there so that if it's gonna be included in smart scale, we're gonna be on the right timeline. As for work for the next MPO work plan, I have from you guys just now, the Route 20 connection, potentially a steering committee to look into that further. Parallel bike network, like a low stress bike network, I think is what Michael was referring to. A potential household travel survey, which Amanda, I will also add that that's something that Lucinda and Sandy and I thought about as well, just because of how travel behavior is changing with the pandemic, that, it will be useful to think about travel that's not just commute travel. Let's see here. And you also noted an analysis of travel behavior by streetlight. Let's see, and polish up prioritization of projects in the Jefferson area bike ped plan and polish it up with some public involvement. This would be related to smart scale so that we can, more quickly and more clearly make decisions about which projects we would be applying for funding for in the future. Anything else anyone has to add? No? Great, well, thank you for all of those comments. I'm just quick looking at my agenda, and all we have left are roundtable updates. I know we've talked quite a bit about smart scale stuff, but if anyone has any additional updates, let's just go sort of around the room. Bill, what would you like to update us with?
I don't have too many updates on projects or anything like that. We do have our students coming back February 1st, I believe. Again, gonna pretty much look like the fall with most classes being online, but there will be a few more students in town, though they might be sitting in their apartments or dorms taking classes. I guess maybe a question I would have after I pass the baton would be if there's any changes to the e-scooter and bike programs that are in the city, because I know that's something that our students use a lot when they're here. So.
Thanks, Bill. Sounds like Amanda, you should go next.
Yeah, I can follow up on that. You know, at this point, we are expecting VEO to resubmit their application. So we have an annual permit process, and so they're going to be submitting an application to continue to provide bikes and scooters in the city. We don't anticipate any major changes, but the ridership really has been pretty low. Not only, well, it's really hard to know how much of it is COVID related, how much of it is pricing related, how much of it is their staffing, because they were sort of without some local ops staff for a bit this fall. So the ridership was very, very low, September to December. But they're, you know, I think they're starting to get things back on track, and we'll see what happens come student return. Yeah, are there things that, Bill, you know, you've noticed that you would like to see potentially changed, or?
No, I can't think of anything. I just didn't know if there was any changes on the horizon for that program.
Yeah, not at this point.
Okay.
They did talk a little bit about, and this was something that we had considered before we all went into lockdown in March. They have a seated scooter that they potentially might like to roll out at some point this year. That would be a big change, you know, just in terms of additional types of vehicle types on the road. But that's really the only potential thing that I could see being different. Another thing that we're working on, I guess around Thanksgiving, well, we had been looking at completing the on-road bike network between 10th Street and Buckingham Road on Preston and Barracks Road, and had posted, we realized that in order for us to be able to make that final connection, we would probably need, using the current roadway width, we would need to remove some parking. So we posted a notice in the affected sections, got a lot of pushback from those that were affected. So we're going to be doing some additional parking demand studies in the coming months. And we'll likely have some sort of a public meeting for people to discuss the results of that and the proposal. So I think that's the biggest thing right now.
Great, thanks, Amanda. Chris, do you want to go next?
Other than still working to get Rugby Avenue Trail out to bid that comes into McIntyre Park there. The Washington Park bicycle connector from Madison to Madison, I think, will be under construction, hopefully built before the next school year starts, both for local students, and I think there's some UVA students in that area. I'm mostly trying to wrap up the existing large projects to get ready for the next round, and have had on the biking single track AT style trails, a number of property acquisitions we've been waiting for quite a while are finally clicking into place. So that's more for Ravenna Trail level kind of stuff, not the urban system as much. But it's nice that my 14-year-old dry erase board just finally got a few things erased from it. I can move on to the next step. So I'm taking this COVID break and slow down to kind of clear backlogs before I really get into some new stuff.
Thanks, Chris. Dan, you want to go next?
Sure. So Smart Scale was definitely a good update for us. I don't know if I mentioned this last time, but you know, the decision with the previous submitted round for TA and revenue sharing projects, we're basically kind of reevaluating what we submitted for Tabor and High Street and Crozet, sidewalk improvements, on how to proceed with that. We have a Berkmar Drive extension to Airport Road that's going to have a shared use path on it, bike lanes. looks like the county's still going to follow through with that. And Old Lynchburg Road, Morris Creek, that was decided. It was kind of broken down into the greenway and then the sidewalk improvements on Old Lynchburg. And so we're going to work with the county, with Chris, or with the city with Chris, and get that connection to Azalea Park on Old Lynchburg Road, the sidewalks there, and then reevaluate the greenway at a later time. Let's see here, just an update on some older TA projects. Greer Druitt, that shared use path connection there should be going for construction this winter. And Avon Street, Mountain View School there, we have some pedestrian crossing improvements there that will be constructed this winter as well. That was older TA grants. And then we have Berkmar is in design right now. Berkmar shared use path connection from Ryle to Hilton Heights Road. That's currently underway in design. And let's see here. It's kind of some projects I wanted to highlight. And Fifth Street Extended Corridor Study, that was VDOT led corridor study, some improvements there, a lot of bike ped improvements as well, and suggestions. And that corridor study will be going to the board for their information and in February. I forget the date offhand right now, but in a couple weeks.
Real quick, Dan, on the Old Lynchburg, I talked to Kevin. I may need to wrap Amanda into that conversation because there's on-street sidewalk work, and if the city's might going to kick in some money, I may need to talk to her about if she's got any money in the upcoming fiscal year, because I think she got zeroed out this year too. So I'll bring her back into that, but that's Kevin's leading on that one, right?
Yeah,
pretty much.
We've been holding conversations on that one. So
okay, thanks.
Okay, thanks, Dan. Tom, did you want to say anything? Any updates from VDOT?
I just had one question with the from an intermodal transportation perspective, and given the fact the state recently acquired that east-west rail line from Albemarle County through the city, is there any planning being done long range to somehow figure out how the rail would affect pedestrian bike usage and interconnectivity with the region?
Chris, you unmuted. Go ahead.
We've certainly been, the people working on the 3-notch trail are really excited that that rail corridor will become Commonwealth property. Doesn't mean we could slap a trail next to it physically on the entire length, but in places where the 3-notch trail would want to be next to it or cross it, that's really exciting news. But to your larger point, yeah, there's an old railroad crossing down by Woolen Mills that was closed by CSX, and I'd be interested in the urban area where there's crossings and things like that. Does the Commonwealth taking ownership of the right-of-way reopen some considerations? I think, Dan, there's some in Crozet that were closed some years ago completely. Can we renegotiate those things when the Commonwealth takes over the right-of-way and at least get the bike ped option back in? That's an interesting question. So, Thomas, your view of it, I don't see that being purchased in the next couple of years, but is that moving faster than I assumed? And you're right, it's a great opportunity potentially for negotiating with a government rather than a private entity.
Yeah, I don't particularly know the details of the sales transaction, but I do know, like, just looking at what happened with the VRE in Stafford County was really kind of caught off guard when things went so rapidly. So there could be opportunities to at least have some, on a very broad scale, strategic plan as to how it may impact transportation in the region. And it could actually be quite favorable for bikes and pedestrians. So I just throw that out to see if there's anything being kicked around, particularly, with the PDC.
Yeah, we at least put a plug in with Nick Ruiz at DRPT, who I think is somewhat involved in that transaction. So we've put the very conceptual flag out there. We ought to keep our ear to the ground and see, or our ear to the rail, right? And be there when the deal closes and make sure we move that to the next step. Good idea.
Yeah, the other thing I would comment on is I think there seems to be a lot of good progress with the different corridors and trying to work interconnectivity. But just to kind of reinforce what Michael was saying, the one map really pretends to be an opportunity to communicate to various approvers, particularly CTB, how the city and county projects tie in together. At the same time, we've seen some challenges, projects like Commonwealth and Dominion Drives having fairly significant right-of-ways, Ivy Road having a fair amount of buildup and cross slope connections or corrections that have to be made to make some of these road and bike and pedestrian improvements. So I think if you can get the one map to a point where it can be used as a baseline, and then you can start to look at it from a marketing perspective as to, are there any low-hanging fruit type projects that can be quickly executed that don't require extensive right away? On the other hand, a smart scale project like the Hydraulic 29, which gets a bridge across 29, that's huge for interconnectivity between the north-south and the east-west trails are being done by their respective localities. So I think you're on the cusp of having a lot of good tools to help articulate what you're trying to get and to fund them. But I would just ask that, knowing that we can get caught up in a lot of right-of-way issues, that should be a pretty good barometer as to how quickly you might be able to execute some of these projects. And are there some that could go faster where you get more bang for the buck, just to show progress to help the public to start using these facilities?
Great, thanks for those comments. That's really helpful. Let's see, Peter, Michael, David, did you guys have any updates, comments, questions?
Thanks, Amanda. Sorry, Jessica. It's been a long year. So a couple of things. So PC is hosting 3 events that are all related this in the next month, which I'll get into a second. But we're also following a whole host of state level legislation. And 2 pieces have bicycle implications. One is the Bicyclist Safety Act, which I think you all probably know about. Amanda sent out a link about it to BPAC, but would make some changes to rules at the stop sign, allowing a bicyclist to make a rolling stop in certain situations, allowing them to ride 2 abreast, and also changing, this is maybe the most significant, is changing the 3-foot rule to must change lanes to pass a bicyclist. So that could really change the what it feels like to ride a bicycle. And then the other one is an interesting $5 million for long distance trail planning in the proposed, the governor's proposed budget. So we're following both of those. They seem to be advancing slowly. And then the events that we're hosting, so registration open for the Active Mobility Summit, which is in February, and I'm about to post information in the chat about those. So that'll be an opportunity for organizations to come and almost do like a pitch fest for projects that they're working together on, or that they see an opportunity to work together on. That'll be facilitated, and that's Friday, February 26th. We're also co-hosting with the city and the public library a Safe Streets book club where we're reading Angie Schmidt's Right of Way, and that includes a free book for anyone that would like to participate. Information about that in the chat. And then also the Active Mobility Alliance is meeting tonight at 5 o'clock. And the 2 main items are talking about the summit and picking a name for the group. And also we have a new breaking item, which is one of our members, City Bikes, needs a new, Community Bikes needs a new home. So I'm sure we'll talk about that as well.
Great, thanks, Peter. Any other comments, questions?
Well, Peter, I have a really quick question. The $5 million Governor's Trails thing, what does that go into a competitive grant program? Do they know how that's going to be disseminated?
Yes, so I've heard mixed information about that. So my sources implied that there's a project attached to that, and similar was reported in the Mercury News, but I'm also hearing people saying, no, that's not it at all. So I think we're going to have to wait and see it.
I guess it's got to go through the General Assembly budget process and all that. So, okay.
Correct. And we see it as no matter what, it's good news as long as it's sustainable, ongoing funding, and obviously, hopefully, equitably distributed across the Commonwealth through, for example, a competitive process.
Awesome. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, that's going to wrap things up. I just want to remind Amanda, your homework is to send me the GIS info so I can take the one map stuff off your hands. And Dan and Chris, your homework is to reach out to me with a meeting date so I can set you up with all the presentation materials so you can talk about the Rivanna Bridge project to all the people who need to hear about it. I think that's it. Thanks everyone for attending. Send me any emails with any follow-up questions or comments. That's it. Have a good rest of your day.